A better route. Chapter 134. Konan had never really seen herself as an extremely powerful ninja. That's not to say she didn't think she was strong, no, she'd always thought that much about herself. She just never viewed herself as anything on the level with her old sensei or any of his students. However, as she fought against her old friend, that's exactly how strong she seemed to be. Yahiko wasn't a slouch either. He'd been the Akatsuki's first leader after all. He was an expert with water jutsu and one of finest swordsmen the Hidden Rain had ever seen. But he still couldn't seem to get the upper hand in even the slightest way. He was currently trying to use one of his favorite water-based jutsus, water whip blades, to cut Konan into tiny pieces. Konan had 3 of the whips coming at her from all directions. Luckily, all she had to do was raise up her hands, almighty push. Once whips were gone, Konan put her hand to the ground, summoning jutsu. A puff of smoke appeared along with some kind of giant crustacean. Yahiko blinked a couple of times. What in the hell is that thing? Konan looked at the creature she was standing on top of. I'm not actually sure, but I think it's a crayfish. Yahiko took out his blade and charged at the monstrous creature. So what happened to Nagato? Is he okay? I mean, you seem to have one of his Rinnegan. Konan's summon took its claws and tried to slash at Yahiko, but he raised up his sword and caught the blow. All of this while Konan was trying to figure out how to break it to him. He's dead now, possibly reanimated like you for all I know. The day he watched you die though, he absolutely lost it. For a long time he did things that were absolutely horrible. Yahiko's blade began to glow and Konan jumped off of the crayfish as quickly as she could. She knew exactly what that meant. The blade released an equal amount of force that the crayfish had when it tried to slash Yahiko and sent the crayfish flying and landing on its back. He jumped on top of it and shoved the blade into its chest, dispelling the massive crustacean. It was one of the things that had made Yahiko such a feared swordsman. He had a technique that allowed his blade to absorb the force of any attack and realce it back onto his opponent. Yahiko finished up his attack and asked Konan, he was really that bad? What all did he end up doing? Konan grew out her angel wings and sent a group of paper bombs at Yahiko. He killed Sensei and helped a madman in his goal to try and throw the world into an endless dream. Luckily, Sensei had another student that was able to put a stop to him. Yahiko made a group of water pillar around him and the bomb exploded when they hit them, leaving Yahiko unscratched. Well, you'd better now let me help this psycho. I'm not about to be someone's puppet. Konan looked at her old friend and prepared her next attack. Nagato was forced to take you out once. This time, I'll be the one to bear the burden. The other Rinnegan battle was raging on strong as well, although this one was a little less one-sided. After all, this was a battle between 2 ninjas who were easy S-ranked. If the medics hadn't been so busy they probably would have been out there watching. Mito already knew that she couldn't use ninjutsu against him, which was actually pretty good for her. She had more than enough taijutsu to work with and she was willing to bet that her sage mode would give her some things to work with too. Of course that didn't mean she had an easy fight ahead of her. Nope, Nagato was already showing her that much. He grew out an extra arm with her mechanical powers and it began to form into some kind of cannon-looking thing. Whatever it was, Nagato clearly didn't want it active. I'd get the hell back if I were you. Mito saw the cannon began to glow. What is that thing? Nagato's cannon arm pointed at Mito and began to glow ever brighter. It's my Azura cannon. It fires a blast of chakra strong to devastate an entire area. Seriously, you need to get the hell out of the way before this thing fires or there won't be anything left of you. Mito watched as the cannon fired and a blinding flash of blue light came right for her. She channeled chakra into her legs and was gone in an instant. Of course Nagato couldn't see it since the light was bright for him to see anything else. The next thing he knew, Mito was right in front of him and giving him a hard kick to the stomach. He skid across the battlefield and took a few seconds to get his bearings again. "You're lucky that I wasn't able to see you until it was too late. If you'd been even 1 second slower, I would have used the almighty push and you would have been one who got launched in the air. That speed may be just what you need if you want to stand a chance against me. It might allow to avoid me getting you in for a good attack." She raised her hand up above her head. "Then I guess I'll have to use something that won't force me to get too close to you," Mito said and slammed her fist into the ground. Nagato looked down as a fissure began form where Mito had punched. It was technique she'd learned from her mother and she'd found it pretty useful sometimes. However, she'd added a little something special to it as well. Mito summoned a slug who started to fill the fissure with acid. It essentially made a giant pool of acid right under Nagato's feet. He tried to jump out of the way, but pool still managed to burn off one of his feet. She took the opportunity to try and land another attack on Nagato. Mito activated her first gate and ran at Nagato at lightning speed. She'd been hoping that her gate would be fast enough to attack her opponent before he could use his defense. However, her hopes were quickly dashed as Nagato raised up his hand right before she reached him. Almighty push. Mito was stopped midway through her dynamic entry and was sent skidding just like Nagato had been. She stood up and activated her second gate. "You really are as tough as they say you are, aren't you?" Nagato shakes his head. "No, I'm far stronger than they say I am." People had always thought that if any of the two Sannin were going to fight one-on-one, it was going to be Jiraiya and Orochimaru. Between the two of them always being at one another's throats back when they were teammates and Orochimaru becoming traitor, it seemed like it was inevitable. The two did sort of fight back during the incident at the Chunin exams, but it wasn't really those two that were fighting each other. No one, however, had expected Jiraiya and Tsunade to be fighting one another. Granted, Tsunade had smacked him a couple of times for trying to peep on her before they were married, but them actually fighting was a totally foreign concept to everyone. Tsunade was currently riding on Katsuyu while Jiraiya was atop Genken. Of course the Toad was rather confused at first, but it didn't take long for Jiraiya to explain. As much as he'd like for Gamaken not to fight alongside him, it wasn't really the Toad's choice. Once a Toad was summoned, it was his duty to protect whoever summoned him, no matter what he said. Gamaken swung his Susumata around and pinned Katsuyu to a nearby cliff. The slug wasn't going to be taken down that easily though. She shrank herself down and slid out of his grip. He flipped the Susumata around so that the pointed end was right above Katsuyu and prepared to stab her. "I apologize, Ms. Slug, but this ungraceful Toad doesn't have much of a choice. I hope this doesn't hurt too much." Tsunade jumped up next to the huge weapon. "Oh no, you don't." She focused as much chakra as she plowed into her leg and kicked it out of his hands, which was amazing considering that size of the it. Jiraiya whistled. "Damn Heim, you're just as strong as ever." Tsunade landed as Katsuyu grew back up and tried to spit acid at Gamaken, who merely raised his shield up and blocked the hit. "You didn't think I was gonna slack off while you were gone now, did you?" Jiraiya jumped down and started to head for Katsuyu. She tried to shoot some acid at him, but Jiraiya dodged it like it was nothing while charging a Rasengan in his hand. Not many people knew it, but Jiraiya was one fast son of a bitch. He shoved the Rasengan into the slug's side and sent her crashing into a wall. The slug poofed away while Jiraiya called up to his wife, "I'm sorry about Katsuyu, but you can't be afraid to hurt Gamaken either. There's no way he wants to hurt you." Gamaken nodded. "Indeed, you must not hold back against me, my lady." Tsunade jumped at Gamaken and kicked the shield out of his hands just like she'd done with the Susumata which was about to land. She jumped up and caught it in her hands. "All right, Gamaken, just remember you asked for this." She swung the Susumata hard and hit Gamaken clean across the battlefield. Needless to say, he dispelled when he landed. Jiraiya was glad she wasn't trying to play nice here. That's what I'm talking about, Haim. Nice shot. Tsunade was starting to feel a little more confident. If you like that, then why don't I really hit with something hard? She turned to her husband and leapt in the air once more. Jiraiya knew what was coming but didn't think it was a good idea. Wait, I don't know if you should be. Tsunade was already descending, heavenly kick of pain. Jiraiya frowned as his hair began to grow and his body became surrounded by the sharpened quills of his hair. Tsunade didn't have time to stop before she rushed right into the ball of death. She got out as soon as she could, but she was still in a hell of a lot of pain and was covered in the hair Senbon. Jiraiya felt awful. I tried to warn you. Tsunade pulled the hair out as quickly as she could and started to heal herself. It was a dumb move on my part, but I won't fall for it again. Jiraiya's hair turned back to normal length. Good to hear, because it looks like I'm about to kick it up a notch. Tsunade got a determined look on her face. Then so will I. See you in the next one.